Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome episode. We have got Ethan, the man, the Sant, the blasphemous pet, goddess, god, lord of everything awesome. Dude, how are you?
Oh, Hamish, I am having a wonderful time being here. And also just a wonderful time being part of the Flesh and Blood community overall. So always a pleasure to jump on chats like this. Really excited.
Awesome. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to just have a chinwag a little bit about yourself, about just the history of what made you want to do content, Levia, and all things to do, I imagine, with Levia and Road to Nationals a lot. So let's start from the beginning.
Okay, good. Yeah, where do we start
Where
in
do we
that?
start?
That's a lot.
So when a mummy and a daddy love each other, very. No. So, what got you into? Was it YouTube first or Flesh and Blood, or was there other card games before that? Give us a bit of history.
Sure. So, I used to try to film Yu-Gi-Oh videos for YouTube way back in high school. And it was just, a bit of fun with that dopey camera angle where you just like point it, sideways at the table and just record games with friends. But that never really took off. And along with that never taking off, Yu-Gi-Oh also kind of died out through high school.
Right.
But that was my first introduction into card games, just playing with friends, having a lot of fun at local game stores. But then when I moved on into college, I started, needing an outlet for my free time, some of that competitive edge I was feeling, and I moved over into X-Wing, which is a miniatures game that used to be quite big back in the
Yeah,
day.
I remember. I
Uh,
remember X-Wing. We had that
oh
in
yeah, it
our
was
local
big in
club. It was
UK.
huge.
It was a great game, and I loved Star Wars. I had never played a miniatures game before, but just that game with the list building that went into it was always really exciting for me,
Mm,
because it was really hard to define like a best list in that game because it was so much down to player skill. It's a
yeah.
miniatures game. You put stuff on the table, you fly things around, you dodge asteroids, roll dice, yada yada. Fantastic game to really experiment with because, like I said, you could put together any kind of combination of ships and have a shot if you're just a really good player. So I got really invested in that game, that kind of play style of just, your skill matters most.
Hmm.
But as X-Wing died out, unfortunately, with some little growing pains it had, honestly,
Yeah, yeah.
I just didn't really play anything for a bit. I had like a 2-year dry period where I kind of dabbled in Pokemon, just because friends were playing it doing
Yeah,
like through
yeah,
COVID
yeah,
and
yeah.
all that. I didn't like Pokemon. Pokemon was really, um, I felt like that game just didn't have the interaction I was looking for that I'd
Yeah.
played in every card game previous or miniatures game previous. So then I went to my LGS one day where I was like part time working at the time, and my boss told me about Flesh and Blood. And he'd been playing it kind of in his own back room for a bit, hadn't brought it into the store officially, and
Right.
just said, "Hey, we're looking to start getting games together. Do you want to play? We'll get some other people." And we just started playing, like four of us, over at his place. And man, I was like so hooked
Yeah.
because that, like, the card game appeal, the heavy interaction that Yu-Gi-Oh had,
Hmm.
plus like the player skill focus that X-Wing had, man, it like blended in this beautiful, beautiful hybrid. And I kind of played dabble or kind of dabbled in Magic in the past as well, but never to the degree where I really played it. So I didn't really have that much as like a basis of comparison to Magic. But for me, Flesh and Blood just like it took me. I loved the gameplay. I loved the list building or the deck building rather.
Yeah.
I loved sitting down at the table and really feeling like you were slamming attacks at your opponent, taking some in return. Like God, it was everything I wanted in a game. So yeah, it was all thanks to Elliot from Odyssey Games who got me in, got me hooked on that first like little blitz deck we played. Wasn't even Levia actually. First
Oh,
game,
there
first
you
game was
go.
actually on Chain.
Oh.
We played Chain versus Prism, and he had been playing the game enough to know that he could just fatigue out Chain and win. And
Right.
with that like really unoptimized blitz deck, it was a miserable time of it because like what can you do when your opponent just like full blocks you and then you mill yourself to death by like
Yeah.
turn 5? It was not super fun. But I liked the mechanics enough that I dug around more, found Levia, and like literally by game 2 playing Levia, that was like truly the installation of my love for this game. So
Awesome. So that at that point, so did you have your YouTube channel? Like you said, was it the same YouTube channel that you've got now that was doing Yu-Gi-Oh stuff? And when did you decide, I'm going to be the content creator for Flesh and Blood?
Well, that was really interesting. I actually have a second YouTube account that has a lot more views than my current one, funny enough,
Oh,
from Lego stuff and then some of the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff back in the day. But
wow.
we
All
kind of
right.
just let that one die. It's not something I keep up anymore. But yeah, I guess because of some of like the Lego things I've done in the past, the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff in the past, I had enough of familiarity with YouTube that I wasn't, like turned away from being a content creator or anything. It's just not something I was looking to do because I didn't feel like I had any legs to stand on in the
Mm.
community yet. But I had this insanely just like abysmal weekend for myself where I had like this ulcer in my eye. I had just hurt my hand. I had just had to uh, unfortunately, like after this long drive out to IKEA to pick up, I think it was like a bed frame. Turned out
Right.
it didn't fit in my car, so
Oh,
I had to refund that, return it all. It was the midst of just like a horrible weekend for me. Turns out there was an RTN in the area. And so I decided, you know what? I got my Levia deck on me that's just been this homebrew. I went over to this event in the Chicagoland area, and that was like the event where I kind of kicked off because I got top four at that RTN with Levia.
wow.
And that
Okay.
was, I mean, that like was the first in the world to get their Nats invite on Levia at that point. So it was like, everyone's going crazy about, like, what's the list? Who did this? Like, blah, blah. Because even back then, everyone was kind of memeing on Levia already, which
Yeah.
is she was very uncalled for, by the way. She was actually pretty fine in that meta. But, I was barely paying attention to it. I was trying to, like, go to the eye doctor. I was trying to, like, get this checked out. I mean, I was trying to figure out the, like, bed frame thing still. It was just, like, a mess of a weekend for me, but, I did the thing. It was only my second event ever, so it still didn't, like, land on me, like, how big that was really. But then right after coming back home, people were reaching out, like, had a roundtable of Wraith, Hometown TCG. They had, reached out, like, kinda asked about the list, asked for tips. Hometown TCG wanted like an interview and then to do like a how to play video with me as well. And that's when I kind of realized, oh, like, talking about Levia like works. That people really like this. And so after joining their channel to put out some content, and the reception was so awesome. And then people started reaching out on like Facebook, on like YouTube, like comments and all that, asking for more help and like, what are you doing this matchup? Like, what's your sideboard plan here? Like, what are you trying to play towards? Yada yada. And with all those questions, I really wanted to help everybody,
Right.
but let me tell you, it was a lot. I mean, it was like the whole world was asking me about Levia stuff. So I decided, okay, the easiest way to tackle all this is just gonna be to, put things out there publicly. Let's just kick up the YouTube. My first video was absolute garbage because I had nothing on me. I just needed to answer people's questions. So I tilted my camera down on the table. It's like fisheye and horrible. I had a crackly mic that was like definitely broken and just kind of like did my first deck tech. And the reception still for even that absolutely crappy video was fantastic because people love Via. And that's where it all kicked off. Just saw how well that went over and immediately realized, wow, if I want to do this, then like there's upgrades that need to happen in like every single video. And that kind of like goal setting of challenges has been the real reason I've kept with it. I mean, Levi is cool and all, but other people have, figured out the hero. Other people are doing well with her as well. I can't really say I'm like, the Levi god anymore. There's definitely like at least five of us out there now.
Mm.
Um, but just this idea of like using the YouTube as a way to like benchmark progress and just do these quality bumps like throughout has been the real reason I kept up with it. And then it's really culminated now into the League of Levi community
Oh
where
yeah. So I've heard of
we've
this.
man, it's just like everyone who loves Levia is just like all in one place on the Discord, like always chatting about Levia. It's awesome. Because yeah, it's like these are your people across the world because y'all love Levia. I'll just talk about it. And it's like kind of thanks to the YouTube journey here, because like that wouldn't have started without all this. So man, it's just like the gift that keeps on giving. This YouTube thing's been amazing because now I even get to be here and talk with you. So
Oh yeah. Well, there you
it's so cool.
go.
It's so cool.
So, if people want, if people who are joining in and they've like they love Levia or they've never heard of the League of Levia, where can they find this out?
So I dropped the link to the Discord in pretty much every YouTube video description. It's not paywalled or anything. Not into this idea of like putting things behind a Patreon, especially when it comes to Levia, because she's not speaking to necessarily the most competitive people.
Right.
This is the people who want to have fun, but the people also have something to prove. So yeah, just any YouTube video of mine,
We'll
it's in the
drop it in
description.
this one as well. So it's
Yeah,
just a Discord link. Jump on in. It's in our description, and yeah, just join in with the chat. So, the main thing about these League of Levia stuff is there like, oh, I suppose really I'll throw this into this question. In this latest Road to National season, Bravo and Chain are now gone. We've now
thank God.
got, yeah, no, thank God. So we've got Phi, Icelander, and Dromai now has entered the scene. What are your thoughts about where you think Levia may sit into this, what I believe, quite an open meta?
Right. So I'm always an optimist when it comes to Levia,
Of course.
because I do think there's at least like three builds now that have really proven themselves, and they all tackle different challenges that like the deck normally inherently faces. Whether it be the issue of blood debt, well, you don't really have to play blood debt Levia, or the issue of like no disruption, well, you don't have to play that version. You could play like a pummel version.
Mm,
So there's like a lot of things you can do with the deck at this point that have been figured out. And because of that, I think she'll always slot in to like an anti-meta role if like that's really where she needs to be,
yeah.
like in the Chain Starvo meta. I think like the club control build was actually really, really good. You beat Starvo and Chain pretty consistently with it. Um, but then this new meta game, it's a little interesting to completely decipher because I don't know how good Icelander is. That's like
Right.
the big question mark, because I've seen a lot of good players absolutely vouch by her, but then at the same time complain that she can't beat Prism. And if the really good players believe in a hero like Icelander, they're also the players that won't take a deck that can't beat Prism.
Right.
So we're in this weird spot where like she's the one of the three that I fear the most, because Ice, and especially the way she can play Ice to just like tax when you ever want to go in with like a buff first, can really lock out something like the Blood Debt build, which would otherwise feel actually really good, I think, into Dromai. You just kind of roll over everything she wants to do, pop absolutely everything because your deck's nothing but sixes. And then Phi as well, you've got great interaction with Deadwood Rumbler to try to hit Phoenix Flames, and you actually can block that deck where, like, to interrupt Mask Momentum and
Mm,
get good value off Husk and just kind of out trade them as an aggro deck. So I think those two matchups are totally fine for like a Blood Debt build. Icelander's just the big question mark. So as of this meta, I would stick with Blood Debt Claws Levia. It's what I just got second at the, I think, second biggest Road to Nationals in the world. I need to
mm.
like fact check that, but it was
Yeah, no.
56 players.
Well, that's still
So
pretty good.
yeah, I think that might be the second. I'm pretty sure Taiwan had like this massive one. Um, but yeah, I took Blood Debt Claws, and it wasn't even like a tuned build. It was just kind of like, hey, let's test trade in, let's test Crown of Providence, and I was just having a great day. Like it worked out so well. Crown of Providence made that deck feel smooth as butter, and
Awesome.
like that's what Blood Debt Claws needed. You needed a card to just help fix that little bit of consistency. So if that's what that card brought to the table now, and that's what the Blood Debt Claws matchups are looking like, then yeah, I would stand by that she's like solid, maybe low B tier, because you do need a lot of reps with her
Yeah.
to play the deck well. But she's in a position where her matchups look fine, but you need to know how to win them. You won't just show up and roll your opponent ever with Levia, unless you just roll scabs each turn and play that way. Which, hey, some people still think that's how she plays. Okay.
What about the rune blades? Is that something that the Levia fears? Or is it just different? Is it different sort of like sort of challenges to sort of tackle when it comes to Viscerai or Briar, who's who's
Yeah.
been making a bit of a scene lately?
Oh, they're super scary. I mean, the weird thing about the rune blades is it almost feels like you're just checking the draw sequence against each other.
Mm,
Where if you're playing against Briar in particular, it's who drew CMH, Channel Mount Heroic, who drew Blood Rush, and
yeah,
that is going to be a huge determinant in who's winning that game. Just because they're two cards that unlock your explosive damage, and you otherwise both match each other relatively well. Briar is going to normally come back to you in these turns of like increments of 4 damage, like 4, 8, 12 on her turns.
yeah,
And Levia is actually going to outpace that by 1 a little bit, like 9, 13, with like her Endless Mod Dread Screamer stuff.
yeah.
So she can outpace like normal trades with Briar, but Blood Rush and CMH are what tie your actual like huge pushes together. So do you draw it? Do they draw it? It's unfortunately like kind of what that
Yeah.
comes down to a lot. But Viscerai is like the weirder one because I have always said that Viscerai is like the worst matchup for Levi. And that was definitely true back when they played OTK. That matchup was like so unplayable. It
Mm.
was like just the worst. You show up at the table, like maybe get one turn of real attacking in and then die. It was horrible.
Oh yeah.
But now the new aggressive Viscerai builds can still be a pain to play through. I think I need to calm down on saying it's an auto loss now. It's definitely still really tough because once again, it's almost a draw sequence deck where when you play the early game, if I tend not to take Arcane Barrier in that matchup because with Levia, when you're
Mm.
playing against an aggro deck, if you're pitching into Arcane, you're not filling the graveyard. And if you want to compete against an aggro deck at all, you need your graveyard full to actually, attack and win the game through the damage that you want to deal.
Sure.
So if you're pitching into Null Rune, yes, you save some HP, but it doesn't actually advance your win condition at all because you can't afford to just, block with 2 cards, pitch with AB with 1 card, and then swing weapon like with your last card. That's not her play pattern. She needs to actually like play attacks that turn off Blood Debt, right? So I don't take AB in that matchup. A little questionable.
Yeah.
But the way that ends up working out is if they find their really strong arcane damage early and just like kind of piddly physical damage, like if their early game is Mordred Revel or like double Revel, and they just have this crazy push with arcane, you tend to lose those games because all of a sudden you wanting to block with physical cards didn't really do much because most of their damage was arcane. But if the early game plays out where a lot of their damage was physical and it's more like, Shrillic Skull forms or trying to go wide like Swarmings or something, and you block all that out with like, block the physical damage with your cards, then you can actually return the way you want with your own attacks. And then when the game gets tight, you will actually have a significant lead because you get to block with Husk. You get to have protected so much HP with your blocks that when they find their arcane damage cards, it's only an equalizer. It doesn't actually get them ahead. But if they find the arcane damage first, then there's nothing you can do, right? It's you just get pounded by it, and then when the game's getting tighter, like you're just always at risk of instant dying to arcane, rather than the arcane being what like brings the game back to being close, right? So I don't like that matchup. Still, I do have to try what happens if you bring arcane barrier, but I've brought arcane barrier in to like so many other versions of Viscerai, and it always just felt like it didn't do anything for your win con. So I don't know. I don't like playing against either Wind Blades because it just kind of feels like, who drew
Mm.
their big stuff?
Yeah.
Who drew their because the games are so aggressive, they're over so fast. But Levi can beat both these decks.
I
Like
agree with
she
that.
can.
I
And
agree
like
with that.
that's the beauty. Yeah.
I played into a Levia on Tuesday with one of my good friends, James Adams, who watches a lot of your stuff. And yeah, it was just basically just this big rainbow pummel deck. Just
Oh, I love that one. Yeah.
yeah, it just came in, and I think he started every turn. He started the turn off with an erased face. But all
That's
right.
a good one.
Oh
That's a good
yeah,
one
it is a
against
very
Viscerai.
good one against Visceral because I was like, I don't, and I was like, I don't think you. All right, okay, I'll just block 6 and he pummels. Days. I was like, yeah, but
Yeah.
in every other card, I would have been like, that's who cares, right? Who
Mhm.
cares? 4 damage, lose a card, I'll just draw back up. But it was like, oh my goodness, draw back up, my turn. All right, okay, I guess I'm not even doing my own.
No, you
I can't even go. I can't skies. I can't. Right. Okay. I
no,
can't.
your face got erased. That's just
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah. I
You
know
gotta live with it for a
exactly.
turn.
And it was really really awkward. And I think Levia. If I think Levia is going to take on Viscerai, I think the raised face is like an auto 3 copies of because it is such a like for brute, which I'm sure you know, just brute in general, has these massive lack of on hit effects,
Mhm.
and something like that is very impactful against certain heroes, Viscerai especially.
Right. Well, that version of so the weird part about Levia's chassis is that you can't really sustain too many if you're playing like Blood Debt, you can't sustain too many like
Mm,
non-blood debt attackers, ways that don't turn off blood debt, and you can't sustain that many cards that don't interact like at all with blood debt. So it's like your attackers need to synergize a bit, and then your like utility portion also needs to synergize a bit. So when you add a race face and you add pummels together in the same deck, that takes basically your ability to play Blood Debt just out the deck. Like you just can't really support it. So that version of the deck, you see my cats in the
No,
background.
no, they
Crazy.
look like they're having fun.
Yeah. So that version of the deck tends to just play no Blood Debt, and it's this whole like rainbow pummel build with Tunic, and man, I love playing that version of Levia. But to satisfy the rest of the League of Levias, have to calm down on playing that build all the time because it's not very thematic.
No, no.
Everyone complains about that build, but man, it is juicy. I do like that. Yeah.
So, one weird question, I suppose, really, which is something I don't know happens. I don't know whether it may happen in your League of Levia group. Now, you've got this also really, really good brute hero called Reinar.
Okay. Oh, Reiner.
Okay. Is there a rivalry between the League of Levias and the
Brute Nation.
Brute Nation?
Right.
That's it. Okay, Brute
Yeah.
Nation. Is there like a competition for you two, or both of you in this spot of going, man? We haven't got time to be knuckleheading against each other. We've got, if any of us do really well, we should be celebrating. Or are you guys trying to race as we're the top brute?
I just think there's no contest. Levi is just hands down better. So I don't even really recognize Brute Nation. Do they have a Discord? What's going on? Um, but no, I have a lot of friends of mine who hopped on the Levi train with that whole pummel build.
Yeah.
Always came at it with this whole, why aren't you just playing that in Reinar? Like you're only playing like one shadow card. Well, for one, I'm always going to play Levi because that's just what I like. And you're playing that deck with like a naked text box anyway. But when it comes down to it, like there are some builds that really could be Levia or Reinar. It's like the same, whether you pick one or the other. And there are those people that just like refuse to play Levia and just will play Reinar instead every time. I think those people are wrong. You gotta try. All Brute Nation players, we love you, but you gotta experiment a little bit and just try Levia for that first little taste in like those pummel decks, and then you'll realize, man, maybe I want to try the other versions of Levia, and on and on, and then it'll go full circle. And then everyone will be playing Levia.
Yeah.
That's just like that's how we want it. But there's no real rivalry. We love Brute Nation. In the Discord itself, it's just Levia talk though. That's just like how it is.
So if there's like a Rhino player that rocks up, you'd be like, right, you better put your Levia mask off, or whoop, go to the Brute Nation.
Go back to the main Discord. What are you doing here?
I suppose really, if any, I think this is kind of like the awesome thing really in general about these two heroes, is that if any brute class just does well, I think everyone just naturally goes, oh yes, they're just so happy to just see any brute win. And I suppose really that with you piloting the way of Levia, which is obviously just like, she's always on my radar. Like Levia is always on my radar now. Definitely made her far more popular. And as well, if anyone was to play Reinar and said, why would you play Levia? Levia has Husk, right? So you can never deny the ability of having 6 block in your ability, in your binder, to just go, well, I've got that. I know you can intimidate, but we've got this big piece of armor. So there you go. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's it's generally awesome to hear that you've got this amazing community, full of just diehard dedicated Levia players. What you've got Road to Nationals coming through. You've came second to it, so you're going to be heading off to the Nationals. I imagine you're taking Levia naturally.
Yeah, it would hurt the brand too much for me to not do that. Plus, I don't know what happens if I stop playing Levia in like James White's eyes. I mean,
what happens
at this point?
Here's a question: what would you do if she lived in Legends?
So we've had to address this on the channel formally. We're allowed to start winning now. We can get her like halfway there, but then we just need to start conceding at that point. Like we can't live in Legends.
What was if you are world? You're in the world, like you're in the final. You could be crowned the world champion. You're on the doomsday throne is sitting upon you. But if you win, we'll be taking Levia out. But you could be crowned the world champion. Would you concede?
No, I'd concede. I'm not even kidding. If that's actually how it was, I would concede. Because if you look at the scaling of the points, I'd be taking away enjoyment of playing Levia from an entire next 2 seasons. If I was really gonna get her 300 points, that's like robbing the rest of my my fans, my community from the ability to play her. I would not do that.
No.
But if another Levia person could get her up there, I think it'd be more allowed. But I don't want to be the one to take the enjoyment of playing her away from the community.
Dude,
Uh,
someone needs to sit on the Doomsday throne.
okay, well, hey, it could be you.
I
Become
no,
one of
not.
my disciples.
I'm
Get you up there.
I'm too much of a Viscerai main to give me some credit, man. I started when Crucible War came out. I know what it feels like to play someone that everyone just looks down upon them, and then
That's true. That's true.
and everything comes in slowly but surely. Things come in, and then you start getting a bit good, and it will happen. Honestly, Levia, I believe is well. You're going to say I'm wrong, but I am, treading on thin lines here. I'm going to end up like one of those skulls on the Doomsday card if I carry on any further with your Discord. But I think that she is generally 1, 2 cards away from being quite, in the
Mm,
world of where Viscerai is. I think he's the same journey Viscerai went, where
mhm.
it started off as I get it, but it's really, really difficult. And there's just other heroes doing this job, but more efficient. And then all of a sudden, these new cards start trickling out, and it actually starts to raise the power level. And I believe Levio is like literally 1 or 2 cards away from that. Am I wrong, or is she there already?
No, right now the biggest problem with Levia is that you actually play Blood Rush and Claws to begin with. Like that's just definitely not how she was intended to be played.
No,
Hexagore exists and it's a beautiful card. It's a
uh,
great rate card,
it's
but
a it's a cool looking artwork.
there are 0 synergy pieces for Hexagore. Like you can pretend that Dread Screamer is like the go again Hexagore needs, but that's 4 pitch. And what the heck else are you doing on that turn? Like maybe throwing in a howl, I guess. But then you're only limited to like that, one playset copy of Dread Screamer to pull this off. So what are you supposed to do with Hexagore? Like roll scabs every turn? I've no
Yeah,
idea.
no,
X-Score is just like that card is a mess, but it's so good for her theme and like for in theory how she plays where she's this deck that like is never going to be weapon centric when she's playing for Blood Debt, but she uses these like outlets of like Howl from Beyond, Deeper to Evil, and then supposedly Hexagore as great like resource sinks when the turns allow for it. So I don't think she'll ever be like a Hexagore centric deck, but she needs like one more synergy piece card that just either like replaces Blood Rush Bellows
mm-hmm.
and just like makes us want to run Hexagore, like some weapon buff that turns off Blood Debt, whatever it is. That would be huge, like absolutely huge. That's how I want to play Levia. That's how everyone wants to play Levia, but it just doesn't exist. The other thing she's really missing, and Reiner players would love this too, is just one more blue 6.
Mm-hmm.
And the big deal with this for Levia is her 6 base is where all of her 6 count starts to fall apart
Yeah,
because you just don't have that many to run. So when you draw weird sequences of hands with Levia, one of the worst ones you can draw is when you're blue heavy early because you need to block with those cards to fill grave, but they're not actually filling the graveyard with anything you care about unless you had like a Wrecker Romp in there.
yeah,
So when you draw your blue base first, which is just sometimes going to happen, you can end up just filling the yard with trash. And then it comes back to bite you later, but there's just nothing you can do to control that. It's just how you drew. And that's a huge problem. I feel like if you, throw in like one more blue 6 that blocks,
mm-hmm.
everything will go together for her. So that's what we're waiting for. Same as Rhinar players. We share that pain, Brute Nation. And then the Hexagon piece. And she'll be insanely good. But as
Yeah,
of now, like I said, like B tier, even if you're like an insane pilot at her, she's not the best deck in the room. Like she just isn't.
that's fair. Any events that you're heading up to? Any more Road to Nationals, Battle Hardens, Nationals? What's on the event pathway for you?
Yeah, so I considered joining Yuanji in this insane trek of actually going to the Calling Utrecht and then Singapore and then the Pro Tour. But unfortunately, things haven't panned out that way financially.
Oh, right.
I was close. I was really close to joining him on that. So instead, we're just playing it slow. We've got an RTN tomorrow, Saturday. It is a Classic Constructed Armory. I'll be streaming it as well.
Right.
And then we've got one the weekend after, also Classic Constructed, that I'll also be streaming. And then I think like skirmish season starts a little bit, but those are just for fun,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, and then into the Pro Tour, which at this point, got that invite on
Yeah,
Levia even.
very good.
On Levia even. Can't hate me for that one.
Right.
Uh, so we're definitely going there. And then apparently with like, Nats and Worlds also being announced, I mean, I think those fit in my schedule. So I'll definitely go to Nationals for sure. And then I don't have a PTI yet because I keep sacking these battle hardens like a little too hard. So we're gonna tune up, try to get a bit better at playing those, so I can actually get a PTI, or maybe go the route of buying one. Who knows?
Well,
Because I mean, the whole deal with like playing this game is I just want to go to every event and just be there for the community purposes and just like
yes.
show face. I mean, it's like so much fun, the cosplay stuff. So I do want to go to World in some capacity. We'll see how that pans out.
Cosplay, man. That was sick when I saw that. How much how much preparation? Was it all you? Did you get some help in?
Oh, for the young Levia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, So I was really trying to get my girlfriend to do it for me because I figured it was going to mess with the scheduling of the pro tour, and it did. I had to drop from the calling to go join the event, which was very unfortunate.
Right.
Scheduling was very poor,
Yeah.
but no, it ended up being just me. I like sketched it out on a piece of paper. Was like, it shouldn't be too hard to get this stuff together. I haven't done a cosplay before, but young Levia, thank God, isn't covered with tentacles yet. So, we put the pieces together. We gutted like a stuffed rabbit. Got all this fake blood, painted the whole like
Yeah.
Star David pentagram thing on the ground, whatever it is. Um, and it took maybe like over the course of 2 weeks, like playing around with it. But I have already made improvements for Pro Tour in France, so it's going to be a lot better.
Is
Because
it
that first time,
is it
like
as an
truly,
adult Levi? Is it adult Levi?
no, I still can't pull that off. I have no idea how to even start fabrication on that. I mean, that'd be like
That would be
a
sick.
big deal to pull that off.
Yeah.
I'm not the person to do it. But I will, give my props to anyone who can pull that off. There's a lot of professional cosplayers out there. Come on, play Levi, pull it
Yeah.
off,
Yeah.
please.
Nice. That would be that's like Hollywood quality makeup. Or you'll
Yeah,
see some creative person just show up with loads of taped
yeah.
up like toilet rolls. Paint it purple.
I have fever dreams about like cosplaying as that version of Levi, but then I wake up and realize, nah, I'd take like that's a full time job to try to pull it off.
But it
Mm.
wasn't too hard to get your costume together. Was it good fun?
Oh, it was so much fun. Yeah, that event, like I said, it was like really poorly scheduled, but the people who showed up at that point, like, you knew they loved the cosplay because they had to drop from the main event to go join.
Right.
So it was just a lot of fun to be around. Like all these people pulled off really cool cosplays. Met even more amazing people like Rachel, Elaine, Carolina. The cosplay community for Flesh and Blood is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
These people, like, it's a small cosplay scene as of now, and everyone is just like so friendly and welcoming, and that's how you grow it. So like everyone's just aware of how to get it bigger, and they're playing their roles perfect. They're friendly people, and it's a lot of fun.
Awesome, man. So I think on this, I think I'm gonna leave it there. Unless there's any sort of well, this is your opportunity. Any thanks? Any sort of shout outs you want to give? Give it now.
Well, thanks for having me. Obviously, that's a given. And thanks to all the UK players who play Levi. James Adams, know him well. There's also I'm a Bunny, who I don't know his real name. Um,
Oh yes. That
he's
it, yeah, he got ninth
yes,
in
nationals. Yeah,
yes, yeah, and
UK nationals.
I played him round one. Darren Hazelden, that's it. I tell you what, sorry Dan,
Mm.
I had my brain just went when I knew the name was there. But yeah, no, I played him round one at National. And that was
And did he win?
no, he was very,
Oh,
very he was
that's why
very
he got ninth. Oh my god.
yeah, maybe. But and I was on Viscerai at the time as well. And yeah, he that was actually ridiculously close. I think he played I think he realized he played one wrong card when he went into attack. I think he was meant to I think he wanted to play this blood debt card, but I think I don't know what happened, but he decided he didn't. He played like Barrage and Beatdown. Was it not Barrage and Beat? The one with the rhino. And
Oh, Barraging Bighorn.
that's the one.
Man, he was playing that. Interesting.
I think yeah. Anyway, so yeah, he played that, and then he went, "Oh, ah, wrong card."
And exploded.
And then he just took some. He took some blood. He was fine though. It was on like 20 or something else. Took a bit of blood debt, but then when we came down to it, that bit of blood debt mattered so much. Just that little bit of
Mhm,
blood that he
mhm.
took because he would have been on 3 more health or something. And yeah, and it was just literally just close to while. But it was actually insane. It was I walked away from that going, Christ, that was very, very close. That's what Levia does.
Oh, yeah.
She's incredibly scary. She can just come out with some insane attacks. So yeah, that was that game. And yeah, no, yeah, two awesome UK players who really do rep Levia. I do. There was another chap called Dimitri as well, but he could be more brute nation than Levia.
Mm, mm.
But yeah,
Well, those are the 2 that come to mind on mine. They're very active league members, so but, shout out to them for sure.
awesome.
Um, and then, of course, always big thank you to Legend Sword Studios and James White for making this game.
Hmm.
And, actually, like, at this point, directly supporting League Levi. That's cool. If you saw that,
Wow.
that care package James
Yes, I
sent with the
did.
concept art, so
That was
cool.
really,
Yeah.
really, really cool. Here we
And
go.
thanks to him, I have, like, my little shrine fully complete now,
Wow.
foil poster, the
Wow.
banner, the massive card.
So
So,
is that something they've been sending you?
well, I mean, I earned that card at, Nats.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That was a long fought battle to grind tickets. But, yeah, the banner and the poster they sent me. So we've got yeah, like,
That's
we've just
so
got a little shrine, like, coming together. It's awesome.
oh,
So
that's so cool, man. That's so cool. Well, at that point, then I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the chat, and well, hopefully see you at Worlds.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Cheers.
Mhm. Cheers.